My fiancé said, "My bachelorette party is a week-long Vegas trip with my male bestie. Deal with it." I replied, "Have fun." Then I organized my own bachelor party, and the trip was canceled when her bestie saw who I invited. That was the moment everything in my life shifted, though at the time, all I felt was a strange mix of disbelief and numbness settling behind my ribs. I remember sitting across from Jenna in the dim glow of the Italian restaurant near our apartment, the one with the flickering candles and the soft hum of conversations, blending into the clinking of silverware. We were supposed to be finalizing wedding details, tying up loose ends, and enjoying the feeling of being only 6 months away from saying vows we had spent years imagining. Instead, she dropped that line with the same tone someone might use to mention picking up dry cleaning. I had been scanning through the catering invoice when she said it. At first, I honestly thought I misheard her. The room was warm, smelling of rosemary, garlic, and baked bread, and for a moment it felt like the entire world paused. I lifted my eyes from the papers and looked at her, waiting for a grin, a smirk, even a playful raise of her eyebrows. But she was already spearing a piece of ravioli, as casual and unfazed as if she had just told me the weather forecast. "A week in Vegas," I repeated quietly, testing the words out loud as if they might sound different in my own voice. "With Marcus." She nodded, not even looking up. "Yes, it is going to be epic." I stared at her, watching the way the candlelight reflected against her hair, the tiny glint on her engagement ring, and the subtle smirk tugging the corner of her mouth. Something in my chest tightened. I asked who else was going. She said nobody, just the two of them, her and Marcus. A week in Vegas. It felt surreal, like someone had taken the foundation beneath me and shifted it half an inch to the left. Nothing dramatic enough to send me crashing to the floor, but just enough that the world no longer felt level. I put my fork down. I tried to keep my voice steady as I asked if she really thought that was appropriate. Jenna leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and let out a long breath, the kind she used whenever she felt I was ruining her fun. "Do not start," she said, like my reaction was predictable and exhausting. "You always make things into something they are not." Her words stung more than I expected. I reminded her that most people have their bachelorette parties with friends, plural, and not one-on-one with someone of the opposite sex. She shrugged like the idea was archaic, outdated. "It is my party," she said. "I can celebrate however I want." A slow warmth crept up my neck, not anger, not yet, but something close. I tried to articulate the boundary, the respect, the partnership I thought we had built. She brushed off every concern, turning each one into a commentary on my supposed insecurities. She even laughed at one point, an airy, dismissive sound that floated across the table and hit me harder than any shout could have. That laugh echoed in my head long after she stopped talking. By the time the waiter came by to refill our water glasses, the mood had completely shifted. The romantic evening we had envisioned was replaced by something sharp, edged and cold. She told me the trip was already booked, that Marcus had taken time off work, that it was happening whether I liked it or not. Her tone made it clear she expected me to fall in line, to smile and swallow whatever discomfort I felt. When I finally said, "Have fun," she smiled triumphantly, like she had won a contest I did not know we were competing in. But inside, something in me quietly sealed shut. Not anger, not even heartbreak, just a quiet, steady recognition that something fundamental had cracked. That night, lying awake in the dark, listening to Jenna breathe next to me, I realized I was not losing sleep over the trip itself. I was losing sleep over what it revealed, over what it said about us, about what we had become. And as I stared at the ceiling, counting the slow seconds of the night, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. The wedding was no longer a certainty. Not anymore. The days following that dinner felt like I was wading through fog. Every time I saw Jenna, a heavy weight settled in my chest, a mixture of confusion, anger, and disbelief that kept my words at bay. I'd go about my usual routine, work, gym, a quick dinner, but the space between us felt like a chasm. She was her usual self, carefree, laughing at some joke I didn't get, lost in plans for the wedding, for the trip. I couldn't shake the feeling that the person I had been living with wasn't the person I thought she was. I tried to bury the thoughts. Tried to tell myself that I was overreacting, that this was just a weird blip in the relationship. But the more I thought about it, The more the idea of her going to Vegas, alone with Marcus, didn't sit right. It wasn't about Marcus, at least not entirely. He was just the catalyst, the trigger for something deeper, that had been simmering between us for a long time. And I hadn't even noticed until now. I hadn't noticed how dismissive she could be of my feelings, how easily she brushed off my concerns like they didn't matter. She had a way of making me feel like my discomfort was my fault, that it was my problem to solve, not hers. And when I did speak up, it was always the same. She'd laugh, roll her eyes, or accuse me of being jealous, possessive, or insecure. Or the third night I couldn't take it anymore. I asked her again about the trip, trying to stay calm, trying to keep my voice steady. I asked her why she thought it was okay to go off for a week, alone with a guy she had known for years, with no one else involved. Because it's my trip, she answered, her tone not even attempting to hide her annoyance. You said it yourself. I can do what I want. I know what I said, I replied. But we're getting married in a few months, Jenna. We're supposed to be building trust, not testing it. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded tightly across her chest like she had already won the argument, and I was just too slow to catch up. I trust you, Christopher. Why don't you trust me? That question hit harder than I expected. Trust. I always thought I did. But now, as I sat there across from her, I wondered if trust could only go so far when boundaries were being crossed in ways I wasn't okay with. Was it about trust? Or was it something more? I wanted to say more, to get through to her, but the words got caught in my throat. Every argument I raised was twisted into something it wasn't, something she could dismiss with a flick of her hand. I trust you, she repeated, as if saying it would make it true. You don't trust me, Christopher. You just don't want me to have fun. Fun? I scoffed, feeling a bitter laugh claw at the back of my throat. It's not about fun. It's about respect. About not doing something that could hurt the person you claim to love. I'm going to Vegas and you can either deal with it or not. But I'm not changing my plans for you, she said, finally looking me in the eyes. There was no hint of compromise, no willingness to understand my side. Just cold, unyielding certainty. I didn't know what to say, so I said the one thing that seemed to close the conversation. Fine. Have fun. I could see the satisfaction in her eyes, like she just won some battle. She grinned, and for a moment, I wondered if this was what she had wanted all along. Her way. No matter what, I spent the next few hours numb. The restaurant had emptied out by the time we left. As we drove home, I could feel the silence between us like a heavy fog. Neither of us said anything. When we got back to the apartment, she went straight to bed, pulling the covers up over her head as though everything was fine. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. Was I being unreasonable? Was I being too controlling, like she said? I replayed everything in my head. Her words, her tone, the way she dismissed me. It wasn't just the Vegas trip that bothered me. It was the way she had no regard for my feelings, the way she pushed me to the side when I tried to voice them. I knew I had to do something. But I didn't know what that something was yet. I just knew that whatever I did, it had to be something that would make her understand that I wasn't a child to be dismissed. That my concerns weren't petty or childish. It had to be something big enough that it would make her feel what I was feeling. That night, I made a decision. The next morning, I started making calls. The next morning, after lying awake for what felt like hours, I knew I had to take action. Jenna had already dismissed my concerns, but something about her confidence in brushing me off meant I had to prove that I wasn't just going to roll over. I was done being the one who always compromised, who always tried to keep the peace. I was tired of her acting like I was the problem when it was clear she wasn't even considering my feelings. I didn't want to just break up with her, not yet. I wasn't sure what I was trying to prove, but I needed her to understand what it felt like to have your boundaries ignored, to have someone you trust treat your feelings as insignificant. It wasn't just about the Vegas trip anymore. It was about respect. And if I couldn't get that from her, then I'd have to find another way to make her see the consequences of her actions. I grabbed my phone and made the first call. Hey, Marcus, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's Christopher. Oh hey man, what's up? I heard about the Vegas trip. Sounds like it'll be a good time. I could hear the excitement in his voice, but it made me angry. It wasn't that I didn't like Marcus. It was just that he was part of the problem. I knew how close they were, how long they had known each other. But he didn't seem to see it the way I did. Yeah, Jenna mentioned it. She said you're both going, just the two of you. Yep, he said easily. Just us. It's going to be a blast. A rush of frustration hit me. Right. Just the two of you. Alone for a week. Yeah, what's the problem? I felt my heartbeat pick up. The problem is that she's about to marry me. And you're her male best friend. It's one thing if she wants to go on a trip with a group of people, but you two alone. I don't know, man. That feels off. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear Marcus shifting in his seat. I imagined him rubbing the back of his neck the way he did when he was uncomfortable. Look, dude, you know how long I've known Jenna, right? Nothing has ever happened between us. She's like a sister to me. You have nothing to worry about. I couldn't help it. I laughed bitterly. That's what she said about you and her during college, right? That it was all platonic. Well, yeah, but it was. Nothing happened, and nothing's going to happen now. I wanted to scream at him. It wasn't about the trip. It wasn't even about him. It was about the fact that Jenna had made her choice. She had taken his side, no questions asked, and expected me to do the same. Expected me to swallow my discomfort and pretend it didn't matter. You're cool with it, right? Marcus asked, breaking through my thoughts. I took a deep breath, then something inside me snapped. Actually, no, I'm not cool with it. I could feel the tension building in my chest, a knot that wouldn't loosen. You know, I've been thinking about it, and I'm planning my own bachelor party, same weekend. You know, since you're cool with it and all. He laughed, but it didn't sound right. Wait, seriously? What, you're going to Vegas too? Maybe not Vegas. But I'm definitely planning something, and I was thinking of inviting Lauren. There was a long pause, so long I thought he might hang up. Lauren, as in your ex? She's a good friend, you know that. No way, Marcus said, his voice suddenly tight. You're inviting her. Why not? I said, pushing it. I mean, she's practically like family to me. Just like you and Jenna. You wouldn't have a problem with that, right? Marcus didn't answer at first. I could hear him breathing in the phone, clearly caught off guard. Dude, he finally said, you can't invite her to your bachelor party. Why not? I thought we were all just friends. You don't think I trust you, right? Marcus' voice dropped a little. Look, I get it, but you're talking about a woman I dated. A woman who, let's not forget, I had feelings for. It's different. Different how? I pushed. Isn't that what Jenna said to me? That it was different for her, that I should trust her. There was silence on the line. I don't think this is a good idea, man. I don't think it's a good idea either. I said, my voice cold. But if we're being honest, Marcus, you and I both know this whole thing is messed up. Jenna's doing something that feels wrong to me. And you're just standing by like it's no big deal. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to have my own party and inviting who I want. It's just like what she's doing. Okay, Marcus said, sounding defeated. But I still don't think it's a good idea. Whatever, I said, hanging up before he could say more. I wasn't interested in his excuses. What I was interested in now was making a statement. The next call I made was to Lauren. Hey, it's Christopher, I said when she picked up. I know this is a weird request, but hear me out. Oh great, she said, laughing. What now? I'm planning my bachelor party, I said. And I need you to come, but not for the reason you think. There was a pause, then, what? You want me to come to your bachelor party?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I want Marcus to think I'm inviting you to get back at him, but I'm not. I just want to make him uncomfortable. Jenna thinks it's fine for her to go away alone with Marcus, so I want to see how he feels about this. Lauren laughed for a solid minute before she answered. You're serious, aren't you? All right, I'm in. But this is going to be good. I didn't know exactly how things were going to unfold, but something in me clicked as I hung up the phone. This wasn't about getting back at Jenna. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about fairness. About showing them that actions have consequences, and if they could dismiss my feelings so easily, then I had the right to do the same. The next few days unfolded like a strange kind of routine, where everything seemed normal on the surface. But underneath, I was already planning the chaos I was about to unleash. I started putting together the details for my bachelor party, or what I like to think of as a statement. I knew I needed to do something bold enough to make Jenna feel what I was feeling, and the idea of inviting Lauren only seemed to make sense. I reached out to a few of my closest friends. The kind of guys who knew everything about me, who knew how long I'd been with Jenna and how many times I had sacrificed my own happiness to keep the peace. They were all in, of course. A cabin by the lake was their idea. "It'll be sick, man," one of them texted. "We haven't done something like this since our college days." And just like that, the plan started to take shape. I also made sure to set up a group chat. I added everyone, including. I was careful to keep it light at first, dropping little details here and there about what I was planning, just enough to stir up curiosity and excitement. I talked about renting boats, fishing trips, and plenty of drinks. My friends were all in, suggesting ideas for the weekend, and Lauren, being Lauren, was more than willing to play her part. I even took to social media, posting just enough to make sure Marcus would see it. I didn't do anything overt, but I posted a picture of a fishing rod with the caption, "Bachelor Party Prep." It was subtle, but I knew it would be enough. I could already imagine Marcus sitting there, his mind wearing, trying to figure out exactly what I was up to. And if he didn't get the message, well, I'd make sure to spell it out for him later. The response came that evening. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through the latest updates on my phone when the text from Marcus came through. "Dude, we need to talk." I let the message sit there for a minute before I responded. I had known this moment would come. I didn't have to ask what he wanted to talk about. I already knew. He was upset about my bachelor party, and I was ready for it. I hit reply. "What's up?" He responded quickly. "This thing with Lauren, it's not cool." I leaned back, feeling a sharp sense of satisfaction settle in my chest. He was uncomfortable, just like I wanted. "What thing?" I asked, playing dumb. "She's just coming to the party. No big deal." Marcus didn't answer right away. I could tell he was thinking about it, running through what to say next. "She's your ex," he finally typed. "It's different." I almost laughed, but I stopped myself. I needed to play this carefully. "How is it different?" I typed back. "You and Jenna are both past all that, right? I mean, she's just a friend to you, isn't she? Just like Lauren is to me." There was a long pause, and I could almost feel the tension in the air. He finally responded, his message short and clipped. "You're pushing this too far." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sat there, staring at my phone, letting his words sink in. I had crossed a line, and he knew it. But the best part was, he couldn't say a damn thing about it without exposing his own hypocrisy. I put my phone down and walked into the kitchen. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but as I stood there, staring at the empty countertop, it hit me. I wasn't doing this to punish Jenna, or even Marcus. I was doing it to show them what it felt like when boundaries were crossed, when trust was broken, and when someone's feelings didn't matter. Later that night, I sent Lauren a message. "Hey, I've posted about the bachelor party. It's time to make some noise." She replied quickly. "You sure you want to go this route?" "Absolutely," I typed back. "If Jenna can dismiss my feelings so easily, then I'm going to do the same. It's only fair." The next morning, I woke up to another message from Marcus. This time, he was more direct. "I get what you're doing, but it's not the same." I could almost hear him over the phone, his voice strained, his frustration obvious. I took a deep breath before responding. "If it's not the same, then explain it to me. I'm all ears." His response was short, defensive. "I'm not doing this with you. It's not the same. You'll see why soon enough." I didn't reply. The message was clear, he didn't want to deal with it. And that was fine. I had already made my point. As I sat in the silence that followed, I realized something important. The whole situation wasn't about getting revenge. It wasn't even about getting back at Jenna or Marcus. It was about respect. It was about showing them that their action had consequences. I wasn't asking for much, just that my feelings mattered as much as theirs did. And if they couldn't see that, well, then maybe this was how it had to be. The day went by slowly, the calm before the storm. But as I thought about everything, about Jenna and Marcus, I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. I didn't know what the fallout would be, or how it would affect things, but I was ready. It was no longer about what Jenna did or didn't do. It was about what I was willing to stand up for, and that made all the difference. Jenna came home the next evening, and it was clear from the moment she walked through the door that she was fuming. Her face was tight, jaw clenched, and her eyes had a cold, calculated look I hadn't seen before. I knew what this was about. She had seen my social media post about the bachelor party, the one with the fishing rod. She'd probably called Marcus too. And now here she was, ready to explode. Really. She spat as soon as she stepped into the living room. "You're inviting Lauren to your bachelor party. Are you out of your mind?" I didn't flinch. I hadn't expected anything less. "What's the problem? You and Marcus are going to Vegas alone for a week. I thought we were keeping things fair." She crossed her arms, her posture defensive. "This is petty, Christopher. You're doing this to get back at me, and you know it." I stood up, walking over to the kitchen counter, trying to keep my voice calm, but my pulse was already racing. "I'm not doing this to get back at you. I'm doing it because I don't want to be in a relationship where my concerns are just ignored, where my feelings don't matter." "You're being unreasonable," Jenna said, her voice sharp. "It's a trip, Christopher. A trip, and you're making it into something it's not. Just like you're making this about Lauren and Marcus, which is ridiculous." I shook my head. "It's not ridiculous. It's about boundaries. It's about respect. And right now, I don't feel like you're respecting me at all. You think it's fine to go away alone with Marcus, but when I do the same with Lauren, suddenly it's unacceptable." Her face hardened. "You're twisting everything, Christopher. I told you, Marcus is like a brother to me. Nothing is going to happen, and you're just being petty because you're too insecure to let me have this one thing." The way she said it, like I was just some child throwing a tantrum, made my blood boil. "It's not about insecurity," I shot back. "It's about fairness. It's about feeling like I'm in a partnership with someone who actually listens to me." Jenna let out an exasperated sigh. "This is ridiculous. You're being manipulative. This is your way of controlling the situation, trying to turn it into some moral high ground." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "I'm not trying to control anything. I'm just asking for the same respect you expect from me. I can't just sit back and pretend this is fine when it's clearly not." She stood there for a moment, glaring at me. Then, as if making some final decision, she turned away. "You don't get it, Christopher. You really don't. I'm going to Vegas, and nothing you say is going to change that." I felt my heart sink, but something inside me hardened. I had already made my decision. This wasn't just about a trip anymore. It was about how I had allowed her to walk all over me for far too long, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it any longer. "I guess we're done here, then," I said, my voice calm, but with a finality that echoed in the room. "Because if you can't even see why this is a problem, then we're already at an impasse." Jenna turned back to face me, her expression one of disbelief. "What? You're serious? You're gonna break up over a trip?" "Not just a trip, Jenna," I replied, my voice tight. "It's the way you've treated me. The way you've dismissed my feelings over and over again. You've made it clear that my concerns don't matter. So, yeah, I'm serious." Her face went pale. "You're throwing away 3 years over one trip." "No," I said, my chest tightening with every word. "I'm ending a relationship where I'm not respected, where my feelings are treated like a joke. And you can't even see it." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing as though she was trying to find the right words. But in that moment, I realized she wouldn't get it. Not now, not ever. And that made the decision so much easier. "I've already contacted the venue and the caterers," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm canceling the wedding. You can keep the ring. Consider it a parting gift." Her face twisted with disbelief. "You're serious? You're really doing this?" "I already have," I replied coldly. "And you can keep pretending you're the victim here, but I'm done. You've shown me exactly who you are, Jenna. And I can't marry someone who thinks so little of me." She looked like she was about to say something else, but her words died in her throat. I could see the anger, the frustration, and the guilt flash across her face all at once. But none of it mattered anymore. Not after everything she had put me through. Without another word, I walked past her and out of the room. I could hear her behind me, calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I had already made up my mind. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a wave, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to settle for being someone's afterthought anymore. I was worth more than that. The next few hours were a blur. Jenna called, texted, and even showed up at my office, trying to make me reconsider. But there was nothing she could say that would change what I already knew. I had made the right choice. When Marcus called me the next day, I didn't answer. I already knew what he wanted to say. I could almost hear the panic in his voice. The same panic I had felt when I first realized how badly Jenna had been treating me. But I didn't need to hear it. I didn't need his justification or his apology. I had already learned everything I needed to know. The days that followed the confrontation felt like walking through a fog. I'd made the decision to end things with Jenna, but the silence in the apartment was deafening. We shared the same space but weren't living the same life anymore. It was like we were two strangers who had somehow ended up in the same place, bound by nothing but history. There were no more wedding plans to discuss, no more tentative smiles over our shared future. It was just me, alone with the aftermath of a choice I had made. Jenna didn't leave immediately. She stayed for a few days, trying to convince me to come to my senses. She'd show up at my office, send long texts, and even drop by unexpectedly, hoping that if she just kept pushing, I'd change my mind. But every time she did, it only solidified the fact that I had done the right thing. She couldn't see it yet, but I had learned enough about her to know that I didn't want to marry someone who was willing to dismiss my feelings so easily. It wasn't about the Vegas trip anymore. It wasn't even about Marcus. It was about the way she had treated me, over and over again, making it clear that my emotions, my concerns, didn't matter. She was only interested in doing what she wanted without considering the impact on the person who was supposed to be her partner. The more she tried to convince me I was wrong, the more I realized how right I was to walk away. I didn't respond to her calls or texts for the first few days. I wasn't angry, not anymore. But I was tired. I was tired of having my emotions invalidated, of having to explain myself over and over again. I didn't owe her anything more. I had already made it clear that I was done, and there was nothing left to say. When Marcus finally reached out, I wasn't sure what to expect. I hadn't heard from him directly since that phone call, where I had confronted him about the trip. I hadn't expected him to reach out again, but he did. The text came one evening, just as I was about to sit down for dinner with a few friends who had supported me through the whole thing. "Hey man, can we talk? I know things ended badly, but I just want you to know that nothing happened in Vegas. I'm sorry for how everything went down." I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling the weight of his words. There was a time when I would have responded immediately, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. But now it just felt empty. The apology was too little, too late. What was done, and no amount of backpedaling was going to change that. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat back and thought about it. Marcus wasn't apologizing for how he treated me. He was apologizing for getting caught. And deep down, I knew that I had seen through the cracks, and I wasn't going to let myself get swept back into the same pattern. I could have texted him back, maybe told him I appreciated the apology, but I didn't feel the need to. So, I simply replied, "Congratulations, you two deserve each other." That was all I needed to say. The next few days were filled with a strange mix of calm and chaos. Jenna continued her attempts to get me to reconsider, sending texts that ranged from angry rants to pleading requests for another chance. She even suggested we go to therapy, but by then, I was so sure of my decision that nothing she said or did could make me doubt it. The apartment, once filled with the noise of wedding plans and shared dreams, was now quiet. I had already canceled the venue, the caterers, and everything else. It was a relief to have that part behind me. I didn't regret the decision, not for a second. It wasn't easy, and the fallout was inevitable, but I knew it was the right choice. 3 days after I sent Marcus that message, Jenna showed up at the apartment one last time. This time, she didn't come in with the usual bravado or anger. Instead, there was something else in her eyes, something more vulnerable. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was desperation, I wasn't sure. But whatever it was, it didn't matter anymore. "I can't believe this is really happening," she said quietly, standing just inside the door. She looked different, smaller, almost defeated, as though the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. I didn't move. I stayed where I was, standing near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching her. I didn't feel anger or even sadness. I just felt detached. You really don't see it, do you? I asked, my voice calm, almost too calm. You've been so focused on what you wanted, on what you needed, that you never even considered what I felt. You dismissed me over and over again, and now you want me to take you back. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved by them. Please, Christopher, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was selfish. But I love you, I do. I loved you too, I said, my voice firm but steady. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep giving when you take and never stop to ask if I'm okay with it. I can't live like that. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and looked at me, as though trying to read me, trying to find some trace of the man who had once loved her. But there was nothing left. The man who had been in that relationship was gone. And it wasn't because I didn't care anymore, it was because I cared too much to keep pretending. I've already made up my mind, I said quietly. And this time, I'm not going back. Jenna didn't say anything more. She turned and left, and that was the last I heard from her. I spent the next few days sorting through the aftermath, talking to friends, dealing with the emotional mess I had created, and starting to process everything that had happened. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had done the right thing. I knew that now. But even as I started to move forward, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Jenna might have left, but the consequences of everything that had unfolded were still hanging in the air, waiting to come down. And I had no idea just how much more I was about to lose. I didn't hear from Jenna for a few days after our final conversation. At first, I felt a strange kind of peace. The quiet in the apartment was different now, like the air had finally cleared. But as the silence stretched on, I couldn't help but wonder what the fallout would really look like. I had made the decision to walk away, but the reality of it was starting to settle in. I had known it wasn't going to be easy, but I didn't expect the emotional weight to be this heavy. One evening, about a week after I had canceled the wedding, I got a message from Marcus. It was short and to the point. We need to talk. I wasn't sure what he wanted to say. There had been enough tension already, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't really apologizing for what had happened. He was just trying to salvage his own guilt. Still, I agreed to meet him. I wasn't looking for closure, but I didn't want to be the kind of person who ran from every uncomfortable conversation. We met at a coffee shop near my place. It was quieter than usual, the kind of place where the murmur of conversation felt like it was miles away. Marcus was already sitting at a table in the back, his eyes fixed on the window, his hands wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee. He didn't look up when I sat down, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of what had happened hung in the air like a cloud, making everything feel surreal. Finally, he looked at me, and I could see the frustration in his eyes, the same frustration that had been there during our last conversation. I know you're mad at me, he said, the words coming out almost too quickly. And I know I probably deserve it. But I just need you to understand that I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my emotions in check. You didn't mean for what to happen? I asked. For you to completely ignore my feelings. For you to justify what Jenna did, like it was no big deal. He shook his head, his expression tightening. No, I didn't mean that. I know it looks bad. It looks like I've been taking sides, like I've been choosing Jenna over you. But that's not it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know what to say when she told me about the trip. And I didn't know what to say when you reacted the way you did. I was caught in the middle. His words didn't hit me the way I expected them to. They felt empty, like a man trying to make himself feel better rather than taking responsibility. I had been expecting something more, something real. But what I was hearing wasn't it. Marcus, I said slowly, you and I both know what's been going on. You're not some bystander in all of this. You knew how I felt, and yet you didn't step in. You didn't tell her how wrong it was to go off on a trip alone with you. You didn't set any boundaries. You just let her do whatever she wanted, and now I'm the one who has to deal with it. He didn't argue. He just stared at his cup, his hands trembling slightly. I should have said something. I should have told her not to go. I should have told you that I didn't think it was right. But I didn't, and now, I don't know what to say. I could feel the anger rising in me, the frustration bubbling up that I had tried to push down for so long. You could have stood up for me, I said, my voice lower now, controlled. You could have respected the friendship we had, Marcus. You could have respected me, but you didn't. You've been hiding behind this "I'm just the best friend" excuse. But at the end of the day, you were just as responsible as she was for everything that happened. There was another long pause before he looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't just guilt, it was understanding. A kind of clarity that had been missing until now. I know, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know how to handle it. I nodded, not sure what to say next. The conversation felt like it had come full circle, but I wasn't sure it had solved anything. Maybe I wasn't looking for an apology. Maybe I wasn't looking for closure either. What I needed wasn't from Marcus. It was from myself. We sat there for a few more minutes, neither of us speaking. Finally, I stood up. I don't need you to fix this, Marcus. I just need to move on. I need to do what's best for me, and that means walking away from this. Marcus nodded without saying anything else. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't at peace either. I had come to this meeting hoping for something that could help me make sense of everything. But now I realized that it wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about moving forward, even when there was no way to undo the damage. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt like a weight had been lifted. But there was still a part of me that was unsure. Unsure about the future. Unsure about what would happen with Jenna, with Marcus, and even with myself. The road ahead felt long, and I knew there were still challenges to come. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking in the right direction. And that was all that mattered. 3 months had passed since I called off the wedding. The first few weeks were a blur. I kept myself busy, moving through the motions of daily life, trying not to look back. I'd blocked Jenna's number, stopped responding to her texts, and eventually ignored her attempts to contact me. I wasn't angry anymore. I had accepted what had happened, and I knew I had made the right decision. But there were moments when it hit me. When I was alone at night, or when I saw something that reminded me of her, that the weight of everything was still there, lingering beneath the surface. During those first weeks, I leaned heavily on my friends. They were supportive, as they had always been. But I couldn't shake the feeling that they didn't quite understand the depth of what I was going through. They were glad I'd made the decision, they said. But there was something in their voices that made me feel like maybe they thought it was just a simple breakup. As if I'd just broken up with a girlfriend, not called off a wedding with someone I had planned to spend my life with. I didn't talk much about it to my family at first. My mom had been a huge supporter of the wedding, and I knew she would be disappointed, hurt even. She had always loved Jenna. I didn't want to face that. So, I kept things light whenever I saw her. But it didn't take long before she started pushing me, asking questions about how I was doing, why I'd ended things. If there was something I could have done differently. I just don't understand, Christopher, she said one evening as we sat at the kitchen table. You two were perfect together. You've been planning this wedding for months. Why throw it all away? I didn't know how to explain it to her. How could I? The reality was complicated. How could I tell her that it wasn't just about a bachelorette party in Vegas or a trip with a guy she called her best friend? It wasn't about trust alone, either. It was about how Jenna had disrespected me for so long, how she had manipulated me, how she had convinced me that my feelings didn't matter. It was about seeing the truth of who she really was. Something I had missed in all the years we'd been together. I don't think we were as perfect as you thought, I said quietly, staring down at the table. It wasn't the trip, Mom. It was everything that came before it. She sighed, her eyes softening with sympathy. But Christopher, relationships have their ups and downs. You have to work through those things. I tried, I said, my voice thickening. I tried to make it work, but every time I spoke up, it was like I didn't matter. I couldn't keep giving and getting nothing in return. My mom didn't say anything more. She knew I wasn't asking for her to agree with me. I was just trying to explain why it had to end. Over time, I started dating again. It wasn't anything serious at first, just a couple of casual dates. It felt strange putting myself out there again, trying to find someone new when the idea of a future with someone else felt so distant. But I was trying. I had to. The fear of being alone, the fear of being stuck in the past, it was all too much. I didn't jump into anything serious, and I didn't expect to. I wasn't ready for that. But there was something cathartic about getting out there, meeting new people, and seeing life from a different angle. I wasn't who I was before. The man who had been willing to sacrifice himself for someone else was gone. The person I was becoming was someone who wouldn't settle for being disrespected again. A few weeks after I started seeing other people, I got a call from Jenna. She left a message, asking if we could talk. I didn't listen to it at first. I didn't need to hear whatever she had to say. But eventually curiosity got the better of me, and I dialed her number. "What do you want, Jenna?" I said, my tone more flat than I intended. She hesitated before speaking. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't understand what I was doing until now. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to tell her it was too late, that the damage had already been done. But another part of me understood what she was saying, even if I wasn't ready to forgive her. "I can't go back, Jenna," I said quietly. "I've already made my peace with it. I've moved on." I could hear her sniffle through the phone. "Please, Christopher, I messed up. I know I did. But I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to push you away." The sincerity in her voice made something shift inside of me. It was as if the weight of everything we had shared together was sitting there between us. But I couldn't go back. I knew that now. I had spent so long giving everything to someone who couldn't see me, couldn't appreciate me. "You didn't just hurt me, Jenna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You changed me. And that's not something I can just forget." There was a long pause. "I understand," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I just want you to know I'm sorry. I never wanted to be the person who made you feel like this." "I know you're sorry," I said. "But that doesn't change what happened. I've learned a lot from all of this. And I don't regret the decision. It was the right thing to do." She didn't say anything after that. The silence stretched on for a few moments before she quietly said, "Goodbye, Christopher." "Goodbye," I replied, and with that, she hung up. I sat there, holding my phone in my hand, feeling a sense of finality. It wasn't the closure I expected, but it was the closure I needed. Jenna and Marcus had their lives, and I had mine. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly at peace with that. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but I had learned to trust myself again. And that was all that really mattered.